Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What is the secret of controlling senses? What is the secret key for controlling senses? That's a FAQ, by the way. And many people try to answer in many ways. Many devotees say, be sincere, or chant nicely, or read books, be busy. There's so many answers to this question. But what is the secret key? Let me just tell you here. Not I, but Devarshi Narad says, Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So now you might have heard this verse, but you might not have really given a deep thinking to this verse, and that's what the purpose of this lecture is. I want to take you in the deep thinking of this verse, the deeper layers. What Narad Muni is saying, he's saying, okay, if you rishikena rishikesha sevanam. Rishi means senses, and Rishikesha means the Lord of senses. So what Narad is suggesting is that use your senses to serve the master of senses, and then you can control your senses easily. Now, the idea in this verse, if you really think about it, the idea in this verse is, Devarshi Narad, he is suggesting, if you want to control your senses, don't try to control it. That's what he is suggesting. Don't try to control it. Surrender your senses to Krishna. That's what his idea, and your senses will automatically become controlled. That's the beauty of devotion. Surrender your senses to the master of senses and let him control your senses. And the famous example given as of chariot. If you drive a chariot yourself, or maybe in modern context a car, you can drive a car for yourself, but you might land up in an accident if you're not expert in driving and if you're not so mature driver. But you can give the driving to somebody else who is more expert, let him drive. And then you save yourself from accident. Similarly, you give your senses to Krishna. Let him drive your senses. How? What to do practically? Practically is you use your senses in service of Krishna as he likes to be served. That's the idea. Or in other words, follow the rules and regulations of scriptures and serve Krishna according to the rules and regulations mentioned in the scriptures. And that means you are surrendering your senses to Krishna. That means you are saying to Krishna, Krishna, how you want that I should use my senses, that way I will use my senses and mind, not the way in which I want to use them. That's the idea. So if we do that, that's a key to controlling senses. Don't try to become controller. That's the idea. The more we try to become a controller, we will end up not becoming a controller. We'll end up becoming a slave. And that's a dichotomy. The more you try to control senses, any situation even, the more you become slave of that situation and get entangled in that situation or get attached to that situation. Both ways. Both is a slave. A slave means either he is a slave on the dint of entanglement in the situation, helplessness in the situation, you are slave to that situation, or you are slave to the situation if you are attached to that situation, or if you are attached to that person, you become slave to that. If you are attached to your mind, you are slave of your mind, because whatever mind says, you will have to do it, you will be forced to do it. So that if you surrender your mind to Krishna, if you surrender your senses to Krishna, then then you are saying that Krishna, what you want, I will do that. Not what mind wants, that I will do. And I will use my mind and senses as you desire. So we are attached to Krishna. So the idea is, the more you try to control something, the more you become slave of it. So the more you try to control your senses and mind, the more you will become slave of it. But that doesn't mean we should not control mind and senses. That simply means the way to control mind and senses is some other way and not a direct control. The way is you surrender them to Krishna in Krishna's service, and they will automatically be controlled by the mercy of Krishna. That's a devotional path. That's the secret to control senses. And that is why you see Brahmaji says, Aruya Krishena Param Patatnata Patanti Adhona Adrita Nishmadanangriya. These jnanis and yogis and dhyanis, they try to control their senses. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Klesho adhikstaras tesham evakta sakta chetasam. It's so difficult to control senses, but they go in mountains, sit in caves, go in trance, shut their eyes and close their ears and sit straight and then control their senses, and nevertheless, vadanti adho, after some time they fall down. That's what happens with them. But devotees, they simply serve Krishna using their senses and mind. They surrender to Krishna, accept His wisdom, accept His rules and regulations, and Krishna makes sure that you will never fall down. By His mercy, He will control your mind for you. He will control your senses for you. And whenever He does something, His project never fails. So the safer path is this, to surrender your senses to Krishna, and then you will get a control to the senses. That is a secret key to control senses. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.